Russia is claiming to have fired a weapon that has never before been used in war. Hypersonic missiles can travel 5 times faster than the speed of sound, and unlike other missiles, they can change course during flight, making it nearly impossible to shoot them down. And according to Russian military, hypersonic missiles were fired at targets in Ukraine over the weekend. Correspondent Tom Negevin live tonight with more on exactly what these missiles can do. Tom.
Right. And you know what, Marnie? Less about what they can do is what analysts are telling us, and more about what the message is that using them sends.
5 minutes of video released by Russia's Ministry of Defense boasting of the use of a high-tech hypersonic missile on targets in Ukraine. Seen here, airborne, strapped to the belly of an Su-35. It's called the Kinzhal, Russian for dagger. Fast and maneuverable, flying at 10 times the speed of sound. Very precise, with a range of over 1,200 miles. And yes, nuclear capable. But so are other Russian weapons systems. Why would Vladimir Putin use one so advanced? Possibly just because he can.
One message, of course, is that he is willing to use his most capable weapons. This is one of the more capable weapons that he has.
George Nikuzi is an expert in hypersonic technology at the RAND Corporation.
That weapon can defeat air defenses because it's flying so fast and it's maneuverable, right? So one message could be, we don't care what kind of air defenses you deploy, we can defeat those.
After nearly a month of war, millions displaced, an untold number of Ukrainian civilians killed, Russia has suffered severe battlefield setbacks of its own, even embarrassments, which could be another way to explain this. Militarily, experts say the Kinzhal is not a game changer, but it does send a message.
Yes, don't mess with us. We know that Putin is very keen to forestall or prevent or thwart any prospects of Western intervention in Ukraine.
And Marnie, that's not to suggest that Russia believes Western intervention may be imminent, but this is designed to very strongly forestall this. You said it off the top, technology never used before, not in combat, a move that sends a message about how far Russia could go with nearly unstoppable hypersonic technology that can carry a nuclear warhead. Not that Russia would go that far, but the implication is that if pushed, it might.
And that is the fear. All right, Tom, thank you. Richard Newton is a retired lieutenant general in the U.S. Air Force, more than 30 years of military experience, and happens to know a lot about hypersonic missiles. So let's bring him in. Lieutenant General, always great to see you. So some are saying hypersonic hype at this point. What do you make of this claim from Russia?
Well, good evening, Marnie. You know, it's kind of a head scratcher. This really isn't the battlefield that would be, in terms of combat operational utility with high-tech weapons such as the dagger that Tom reported on. It's a significant weapon system, but again, I think what Putin's trying to do is really change the narrative because he is bogged down. As we've said, he's off his timing and so forth. And so I think this changes the narrative that says, look, I've got very high-end, high-tech capabilities that I can put on a target and kill the target. But in terms of the number of weapons he's got available to him and so forth, again, it's a head scratcher. In fact, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin over the weekend during the Sunday talks really wouldn't even confirm or deny, and the U.S. officials still haven't confirmed or denied that they in fact used one.
Well, let me jump in because we're just learning that President Biden did confirm that they were in fact used. So is it a game changer if that's the case?
I don't believe it's a game changer in this case. Now, certainly, as Tom reported, you can put a nuclear warhead on the front end of this and so forth, and it's very hard to track. It's highly maneuverable, very accurate. But again, in terms of a game changer and over the overall scenario on the battlefield, again, I just don't see it. And again, I think it's really more of him trying to, flip the narrative, if you will, and show that he's got certain high-end technologies and capabilities.
Talk more about the U.S.'s ability as a defense shield against something like this. I mean, is there nothing out there that can bring something like this down? Where are we at in our technology?
Well, it's very difficult. Again, 10 times the speed of sound is over 8,000 miles an hour. And the fact that it's maneuverable and so forth, it's almost very difficult to detect. The important aspect of knocking a missile down in this case is trying to, first you got to find it, then you got to fix on it, then you got to target it, then you got to try to kill it. That's very difficult at the speeds we're talking about. And so we can track it to a certain point, but in terms of us being able to actually shoot it down, becomes very difficult. And so it is, on the battlefield, it's a very unique weapon system, very advanced. But again, it's one that I would not anticipate to be really of significant concern, other than Putin, again, trying to raise that ladder of escalation and saying, look, I've got these capabilities. You better be on watch.
Well, while we're on the topic, though, how much more damage can this type of missile do?
Well, it's very accurate. It did take out that ammo weapons facility reportedly in the western part of Ukraine. So it does have a very accurate aspect to it, unlike the weapons of atrocities that he's been using to date with blunt artillery, some cruise missiles and so forth, as we've been reporting the last several weeks of these, again, just outrageous human atrocities against civilians of blunt instruments of power. This is not that type of weapon system. This is a very unique, very precise, somewhat maneuverable, pretty much go against high value military targets.
And the scary thought is it could have a nuclear warhead on top of it, right? That's the real threat.
It could, and it delivered by, say, a MiG-31, they call it the Foxhound. That's the NATO code name for it. It could be delivered with a nuclear warhead on the front end of that as well. And it does have a range of about 1,200 miles with a nuclear warhead. Now, again, that is not probable. It's something we ought to be watchful of, but not overly concerned about at this point. But if he was going to deliver a nuclear weapon to just demonstrate his capability with a nuclear weapon, sure, he could do it on the front end of a Dagger with launch from a MiG-31 from several hundred miles away.
Scary thought. What is the United States' capability with these types of weapons? I mean, we've heard them described as unnecessary and impractical, but where do we stand?
We're actually lagging behind. The three services in the United States military that's, again, doing some testing and evaluation is the Army as a land attack missile, the Navy from a seaborne ship-based capability, as well as the Air Force from a air launch capability. But we're lagging behind, but we are doing some pretty effective tests. My sources tell me that we would look for operational capability potentially by the end of this year. The Navy's looking to make theirs operational, say in the next 2 or 3 years or so forth. But there's other capabilities that we have that really, from stealth and other weapon systems that maybe just preclude the necessity of having this type of weapon system in the U.S. arsenal.
Finally, I mean, some would wonder that if Putin did in fact use this type of weapon, kind of upping the game, where the United States stands, and do we still have the upper hand as things have gotten increasingly more dangerous?
I believe we do. Not only the United States, but NATO. And so I'm very confident in our capabilities. Again, and I'm looking also to the current battlefield that we've been reporting on this evening and the last couple of days. It's a stalemate. I'm more concerned about the bloody quagmire that's now, really encircling the cities, but also the civilians that are left over in Kyiv and Kherson and Mariupol and so forth, that I am, frankly, with this weapon system. However, I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly. It is a slight step in terms of escalation, but I do believe Putin is trying to send a different message here of his capabilities. I'm more concerned about what's happening right now in the urban centers within Ukraine.
Yeah, me too. General, always good to talk to you. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.